Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the HootBoard Visitor Information and Destination Marketing Podcast. I am Brian Reynolds, your Destination Success Advisor.
And I'm Satya Shahade, founder and CEO at HootBoard.
And we are here with another fantastic episode of the podcast, and we just want to let everyone to know up top, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. You can also find us on Twitter at HootBoard, that is at HootBoard, and Facebook, same handle at HootBoard, and we are on Instagram and that one is at HootBoard Official. So we are out there in the social media world. Please subscribe, follow us, interact with us. We're posting information often, and we want to see what your thoughts and feelings are with that information. So please find us out there.
Let us. I was going to say, let us know what you want to hear as well. I mean, we love that feedback that we have gotten so far, and I think based on what you guys are going to tell us, we are going to decide what we do here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give us leads, give us feedback, just talk to us. Maybe we missed something. Maybe you can expand on something we say. I'm up for it. I just want to talk to somebody, during a work day. I don't know about you, Satya, during a work day, just want to see if anyone interacts with us and maybe take a break from content creation and what we're doing. Oh, hey, someone.
I'm ready to be a visitor myself. Let's go somewhere. Yes, exactly. And yes, I love to talk with people.
Okay, so today we are going to be breaking down a blog post that I wrote actually back in mid-December. And the title of the blog is How to Devise a Content Strategy and Organize Content for Your Visitor Information Touchscreen Kiosk. This is a blog post that there's 5 questions on it. And Satya and I are going to break down the questions and maybe expand a little bit or even get a little bit more specific on each question, so we can drill down a little bit more about what the blog post was saying and really dig in. So I'm going to share my screen now. There we go. Okay, so is that looking good, Satya? I'm going to adjust our sizes here for. Okay, so when I wrote this blog post, we offer the touchscreen kiosk, and there's a lot of different kind of content strategies and uses for the kiosk itself that I wanted to get into. Now, this is actually getting a lot of traffic, or a decent amount of organic traffic on Google, people looking for DMO content strategies and content strategies for a kiosk. And to me, naturally, the first question I wanted to ask, or I think people need to ask before they organize the content for their visitor information kiosk is question 1, what exactly do my visitors want to know? And I think it's a pretty basic question, pretty almost self-explanatory, really. What exactly do my visitors want to know? Now, I live in a college town. Okay, so typically our big draw here is the university and university-related events. The most popular being college basketball. It's the KU Jayhawks. So there's always a lot of information around the kind of sports atmosphere and what's going on around that, especially now that we're recording this, it's March 4th and March Madness. I don't know about you, Satya. I mean, you're in Pennsylvania or near Pennsylvania area. And that's a big college market, basketball market.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge college market, and that definitely defines a lot of what people are doing. But I'm also in a much more populated area, if you will, generally speaking, which means there's lots of different constituents that DMOs here would have to worry about. But I think going back to your main point, it's so funny. I mean, it's a lot of these things are just going back to the basics, right? Like the 101 of content marketing, whether you're talking about visitors or online audience. This blog post was written specifically in the context of visitors, but the basics remain the same. It's about understanding your audience, knowing where they are gonna come in from, why they're gonna come in from, what draws them here. Then begs the questions: are you going to show more of that? Are you going to give them ideas of something else? But it's all about understanding your audience. I think that's what that question one is in some ways, if that makes sense. I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
if you wrote the blog post, but that on your mind as well?
Yes, I think what drove this first question was I probably analyzed many in the 50s, not the hundreds of many different DMO websites up at this point, if not taking a look at their content strategies and their SEO strategies. And this is like the one thing that I found that was consistent among all the websites was usually the global navigation. If it's events, restaurants, history, shopping, places to stay, or there's another thing like things to do. Those are typically the most consistent kind of top level navigation content I found on every website in the DMO and CVB space. And it makes sense. Events are big drivers of visitors, but things to do, I mean, which also is quite a broad topic. They would have a folder called things to do. So it's a matter of getting more specific of things to do that are, divided even further. But it's kid friendly, sports, music related, any kind of artistic, those kinds of things. But it always started off as broad and got very specific. And if I may also kind of touch on what the HootBoard kiosk does is how our collections work. If you create a collection strategy, like organizing the content, you can start with very broad and then you get very specific. Very broad being like things to do, kid friendly, a little bit more specific with kid friendly. And then you get more specific that are like kid friendly that are music, or kid friendly that is artistic, or kid friendly that is sports related, or kid friendly that is any kind of interaction like playful or playground type of thing. So, but it just usually what I see the best way is to organize it. Starts broad and gets very specific from there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I mean, going back to the websites, I think what they are doing makes common sense, but depending on what destination you are, you may or may not be doing the right thing. The reality is, yes, people's activities are made up of events, going to restaurants, looking for history, maybe shopping, things to do kind of things, right? But underlying that, while understanding your audience, the point that I didn't see in this blog post, not to point much at you, Bryan, there, or put you on the spot, is understanding the destination itself. What do you want to really highlight about your destination to your visitors? If you recall, we did that podcast maybe a couple episodes back, and about website teardowns. And we looked at Portland, Oregon, and the one thing we were amazed was the weird Portland aspect of it, the weird Portland section, which kind of just pointed out all these weird scenarios and customs that happen in the city, which is what Portland partly wants to identify itself with, and that should be front and center of your visitor information strategy as well, because ultimately you still need to stand out. If 50 DMOs are doing the exact same thing and putting these events, as a potential visitor, I'm going to look at them, and then more than ever, I'm going to be confused as to everyone seems to be doing the same thing. Maybe I'll just sit at home and watch Netflix. They might have something new in there. So of course, that's not what I will do. But the point being, find out, not only learn about your visitors, but make sure you do justice to your own destination, highlight what's different about it, and bring that up over and over again, because that's what they are going to associate you with, and that's what they're going to come there for ultimately, or be there for, in case of visitor information.
All right, and I think it dovetails nicely. I think we'll get into that a little bit further down the blog post, but we'll circle back to that. Okay, and that's a great way to go into question number 2, which asks the question, which businesses best represent us to new visitors? Let me go ahead and share that here. And okay, so this is a kind of this is the thought process I had behind this was I was getting sick and tired of looking at websites that kind of have the authority of like, I'm talking about the Yelps or the TripAdvisors where people kind of, pay, or in some ways they kind of pay to play, having those top experiences and being found a certain way. And I liked the idea of representing like DMO websites, identifying the kind of local players that they know personally, or they have a local knowledge of the area that they can recommend businesses with their own personal experience because they know the area. Well, the Yelp individuals or people who are promoting websites, it's likely or very common that the people who are writing those contents from around the country are not really from that area. I don't know it very well. Does that make sense, Satya?
It's a I think here's the opportunities that DMOs have, and they used to do this very well, which has kind of gotten lost over the years because of the platforms like Yelp and Google Maps and everything, is that curation capability, right? You went to a visitor center, you go to a visitor center, and more often than not, you're going to find someone who knows or is passionate about their area, their region, and they are going to point to, hey, here are the 5 top things, and here are some of the nuggets or interesting things that most other people might or might not go, or they might even ask you questions. Hey, what would you like to do, right? And then give you some recommendations. That capability only the DMO has, and we need to always figure out ways of getting that capability, excuse me, in front of your visitors, whether they are visiting on your website or they're right there in person in your region, right? And when I say right there in person, is not just the visitor center. Ultimately, you want to be able to get to them in different spaces, but it's all about that focus on understanding the visitor and then understanding your destination, and then curating the right kind of information. And then ideally, if we can implement on top of that, hey, more of a suggestion based on that person's specific need, which is a much higher level of sophistication in terms of visitor information, right? All of these things, technologically might or might not be possible, but at least that should be an I guess ambition is the right word, that the DMO should be hosting and say, hey, this is something we are trying to get to. Because once the visitor comes in and they connect emotionally with your destination, they get that picture, they take those pictures that they are going to show for the rest of their generations, and then they take those nuggets and they talk about it on social media. That's when you have done your job of completing the circle, where now people are going in and promoting your destination basically for free on your behalf. So yes, what businesses best represent our visitors is definitely critical, and it's a curation process in my mind. There's a lot to talk about that. I think we could definitely expand upon this as we go along in terms of the blog post itself.
Yeah, we could always refresh and
Yeah.
add more into this post if we need to expand on this
Yeah.
thought process.
And I'm seeing the questions 3 and 4. If you don't mind me teeing in on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're kind of almost going an extension to that, right? Like, what are your top spots versus what are your hidden gems? And both of them are important. People are going to come and they might make a decision to come into their top spot, but their second visit could be about the hidden gems. So how are we going to drive that second visit when they are visiting the top spot? Are we going to get them to learn more about their destination? Are we going to send them to that, second and third tier locations, the beat off the beaten path kind of thing? Within that visit, we are going to prep them to come back. It all is a very strategic discussion, but it needs to be planned. Todd Garofano from Schenectady, a couple episodes back, talked about destination management, right? Defining your destination, actually nurturing different aspects of your destination. And then of course you need to deliver that in terms of visitor information down to your visitors as well. So all of those things are important. I think that's a very well written aspect of these, and a lot of times people forget that. We see so many times that there's only the top destinations written in, and then they forget about the hidden gems. But
Yeah.
those are the quirks. Those are the quirks that people get super attracted to. Sorry, you've been trying to get a point and go in.
No,
All yours.
no, you definitely you hit the nail on the head too. It's like when I talk about like, by the way, question 3 is where are the anchor spots that people like to visit? And for those listening who aren't watching, an example of that would be Chicago has the Bean, Philadelphia has Independence Hall, and where I'm from in Lawrence, Kansas, they have this big sunflower farm called Winter Farms. And these are the places that if you were to come and people say, well, what do I got to go visit? Like, well, everyone likes to go to these places. And, sometimes that's a good fit because you want to do the thing that people like to do, like get their photo there. I've seen so many Bean photos on my social media come across. It's almost like at some point you got to get a photo there in Chicago if you visit. However, if go ahead.
I'm sorry, you struck a chord. I close to Philadelphia again. For those of you who know me, I went to Drexel right in Philadelphia, and it drives me nuts sometimes how Philadelphia does not take the advantage of so much history, which is probably one of the most historical cities in the U.S. You go to the Independence Halls. You mentioned the Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell. They're right next to each other. People come. There's like over like 5-10 million visitors come every year, I think. I could be wrong on the stats, but they're standing in line for 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes, and we are missing the opportunity to educate them within those 3 hours about what else they could be doing in Philadelphia. Just case in point, right across from Liberty Bell, there's the oldest shopping mall in the entire country. It's a huge brown or red building. It's beautiful, and it's still an active mall, after multiple ownerships. But that is something to somebody might be interested in looking. But when you are standing in that line, you're just wasting your 4 hours. People could just be walking off and doing these things and spending money while they're at it. So that management and that visitor information aspect is so often overlooked. It drives me nuts.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And to like kind of build on that, I mean, I looked at so many websites from DMOs and CVBs, and I got to tell you, I didn't see a whole lot of hidden gem like folders or hidden gem sections of a website where they're like saying like, well, this is where if you've done everything else, or if you just want to see what the very unique things that we have to offer, go here and check out these things, like the ones you just explained. Or Lawrence has them as well. We have very specific museums, and just like Philadelphia, there's also unique history here that people like to go check out. But yeah, if there's a section of your website that has that you want to list off, like these are the gems that are a little bit not the most popular places, something to consider. I do like how some DMOs have I wonder if sometimes they roll those in with their trails, like Schenectady has the Ale Trail and Concord, California has the Taco Trail. And there's like those little trails that, you go to 5 or 6 locations, and maybe along the way they have like these little things like, hey, pay attention to this over here. That's the first time this historical event happened, or over here, this is where this happened. I like when they couple those ideas together and make a trail whole experience. And then I think those are a lot of fun. I love when I see those things.
Yeah, I think the point number 5, and you might want to read the question before I jump in.
And the final question, as we are getting to the end, is how can visitors get the most for their money and time? Ask yourself that.
Yeah. I mean, that goes back to a little bit of what I mentioned about Philadelphia. Is I think this question can also be read differently, especially by the members of the DMO community, right? Is how can the visitors not be wasting their time and be not spending their money in some ways, right? Not to be it's all about visitors coming in and having great time, and then in the process, more often than not, they're going to end up spending some money, which is going to be good for your destination overall. But I'll let you go in, and then I might have a couple more points on that, Brian.
Yeah, for
But this is
sure.
a very interesting point you make.
What inspired me for this question is probably my favorite thing about my local CVB or DMO is they have their food specials and drink specials all organized very nicely on their website, and they also have like a deals and coupons thing. But the thing on social media that gets passed around the most is the food specials part of their website, and they keep it updated every month or every other few months. They always spend it around, send it around, and whenever I got to tell you, like people go crazy for the food specials. It's passed around all the time on social media, and I quite frankly I love seeing where the buy one get one hamburgers are, or half price appetizers are, or my personal favorite since I have a 4-year-old is where the kids eat free restaurants are at. Those kinds of experiences. And yeah, if you have a visitor or if you have people visiting and they want to get the most for their money, and let's say they bring the family, and you can I say, okay, well, today's Wednesday, and Wing Wednesday, or buffalo wings, or whatever it is, whatever your taste is, can be found at these restaurants. This is where we can get the most bang for your buck. And I look. Most websites had a kind of a deal or a food special or a drink special, but not all of them did. So if you're listening and your website does not have maybe a food specials or a drink specials section that is up to date, I think you might be missing out, because this is a part of the website, at least in the CVBs and DMOs I'm familiar with, that gets very popular, and people keep coming back to it to keep on using it.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, we should not ignore the responsibility of us on the technology side, and I call it us as a broad, whether it's kiosks or website platforms. Um, the technology people have to make it easy as well. Curating food specials for a marketing or a community or a visitor information department or a manager, a lot of times it's one person with a lot of DMOs. It's a lot of work, and can they be made self-serve? Can they be made as simple to publish advertisements directly by the businesses in question itself, right? Those are the things technology should be solving. Those can be easily solvable. These same businesses are going in and advertising on Facebook and Google. Why is the DMO not capitalizing on some of those needs that these businesses have anyways, right? You guys are the best content curator in town, quite literally. Why cannot the technology providers that work with you provide and make it easy to do that? Of course, I should be careful, and I know it's a soft plug for some of our technology, but I think generally speaking, understanding how to get businesses self-sufficient in whatever they are doing, and giving those tools directly down to the businesses is not only going to reduce work for you, it's going to actually in some cases maybe generate revenue, but on the other hand, it is going to provide visitors with information that engages them, which is should be the real goal. Because ultimately what solid visitor information is going to do is, any visitors, we are already spending a lot of time and money bringing those visitors in, whether you're advertising on Instagram or Facebook, or working with a zillion tools that are out there. The whole goal is obviously getting heads in beds. I always reverse that somehow, heads in beds. But we cannot underestimate the power of people who are engaged, just doing their own thing, and in the process promoting your destination. So the goal for visitor information, the ultimate goal for visitor information always has to be, how many people are going in and helping me promote my destination in the end. And the more active, the more engaged your visitor is going to be, whether they found a good deal and they went in and they went to that restaurant and then they took a picture and then they posted it with a location in it, whatever that might be. Those journeys, those visitor journeys would have to be mapped. And then at the same time, the businesses have to be enabled to drive those journeys so that you are not doing it on your dime, and you are actually helping the businesses drive business to them from any of your top locations. So again, technology has a big role to play. I kind of went about that in a roundabout way, but we cannot give ourselves a pass, Brian. So
No, of course not. Of course not.
I take that very seriously. Yeah.
Of course not. Yeah, and perhaps that's another thing to think about as well. As we're winding up this podcast, I mean, what you just articulated, maybe that's in a podcast episode in the future. You know, maybe tools, maybe some tools DMOs or CVBs should be considering, or things to make their life a little bit easier. Since there is, if the budgets are limited and there's like, you know, this is how much bandwidth and how much people power we have. What's the best way to get the most out of the time that they do have to work on something? Yeah, absolutely not lost on me, but just a food for thought, if you will. And with that, Satya, I think we've come to the end of this episode of this particular podcast. Before we say our goodbyes, I just want to say, everyone, don't forget to subscribe, follow us, and share us on Twitter. It's at HootBoard, and on Facebook, and at HootBoard Official on Instagram. What do you think of this podcast, everyone? Feel free to give us some comments, some feedback, your thoughts. What questions do you want to ask?
You know what? Before we really end, I always have the last say. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm an a-hole that way. Sorry, but. I think it just gave. I think one of the podcast episodes I would love to talk about is the 70% rule. Let's spend a lot of time, some time on that in one of our next episodes, so that we can talk about visitor information in the context of that 70% rule. We talk about it with our customers, but those of who have not chosen to work with us, yes, or we haven't reached out to them yet, maybe they can at least start thinking about it in this fashion. So let's pick it up then. But thanks a lot, everyone, for listening to this, and we love your feedback. So please write back to us at podcasts@hootboard.com or podcast@hootboard.com. Is it one
podcast,
or two?
I think it's podcast.
Okay.
I'll have a link in the description as well. So, all right, everyone. And as always, thanks for listening, and please subscribe.